It's been so exciting to be here today in a room full of people who are really engaged in learning more about adverse childhood experiences and what we can do to help people who've had adverse childhood experiences by developing and cultivating resilience.
This conference is a culmination of so many years of working together to bring trauma-informed care and a trauma-responsive community to Kitsap County. That what I'm getting out of it is this incredible sense of hope and optimism and energy for the future.
The challenges that we have as a society, the relationships and healing, and really how to help people. And we have to look at it differently. There needs to be a different, a new approach, and it's pretty exciting.
All right, now you've seen what's going on around the building, and joining me here is one of the men who helped put on this whole day today, the Executive Director from Kitsap Strong, Cody Russell. Cody, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Cody, tell me exactly what is Kitsap Strong?
That's a fun question we get a lot, and we're still figuring out how to answer. Kitsap Strong is a network of 70+ organizations that are aligned in a belief that we can work together differently to improve outcomes for everyone in our community.
Mm-hmm. And clearly that's what's going on today. I've heard so many amazing conversations and stories of different practitioners and professionals in this area who are really learning and growing just today.
Yeah, and our goal is, our belief is, that by bringing together community and having a shared understanding of the world, a shared understanding of how some experiences, traumatic, can impact our entire life, and how we as a community can respond to ensure that incidences don't impact lifelong outcomes. So we can keep stress from becoming toxic, as we say. And we're trying to build a shared language in our community so that everyone across the lifespan can communicate and understand each other.
Sure, and part of that language is the acronym ACEs.
Yeah.
ACEs. So for our viewers who are not familiar, could you explain that just briefly?
Sure, so ACEs stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences. It's a pivotal research study started in the early 1990s looking at 10 sources of early childhood adversity. The researchers were focused on prevention, so they looked at the research around what were we trying to prevent in the early 1990s, and that's how they created the 10 categories. So the 10 categories are 5 of child abuse and neglect, physical, sexual, and emotional abuse, and physical and emotional neglect. So not having what you need, the basic needs met.
Sure.
And then 5 categories of what they called household dysfunction. So growing up in a home where there's mental health or substance abuse issues, where there's violence between the caregivers in your household, or parents incarcerated or parents are separated and divorced.
Sure.
And what was most important is that we started to acknowledge that there's an accumulation effect of adversity that rarely, if ever, does adversity happen in isolation. Meaning in the household where there's one adverse childhood experience, there tend to be others. 87% of the time, when there's one, there's another. And as there's more and more adversity, think of it like putting bricks on a teeter-totter. The more bricks, the higher that teeter-totter shoots up. And what we're looking at there is increased risks for health and social challenges. Literally every health and social outcome we can think of, from unemployment to incarceration, there's a connection to early adversity.
Sure, and therein is the positive effect that a day like today is having in our community, right? We're talking to everyone, practitioners and professionals and personal folks who are here to learn about that resiliency. So talk to me about the Resiliency Summit today. How did that come to be?
Yeah, so we look at what other communities have done and try and learn from the best out there. So Walla Walla, another community, a sister community here in Washington, has been doing a similar sort of event. Every October, they acknowledge October as Resiliency Month and try and continue to bring more and more individuals into this conversation. So learning from them and connecting with Terry Barilla, who's the executive director of their Community Resilience Initiative, she gave us some ideas and we ran with it. So we had Bainbridge Island, Bremerton, Poulsbo, and Port Orchard, all of their cities signed proclamations saying that Resiliency Month is October. Our county commissioners are reviewing a proclamation next week, and we hope that they'll sign that as well. And then we wanted an opportunity to bring together community, as many as we could possibly, to learn this science information and come together to be hopeful about the opportunity that it offers. And so we brought Dr. Chan Hellman here, who's just an amazing speaker, to share his wisdom with our community.
Mm-hmm. And I'm so grateful as a participant of the day. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm so excited to hopefully see this again next year.
Absolutely. Our hope is this the first of many to come, and we'll continue to bring, most of the presenters are local, and so we'll continue to focus on local talent, local expertise, because we have all of the resources we need to solve these challenges that are in our community. That's our deep belief, is that we have everything we need right here in Kitsap. We need to tap into the expertise, the wisdom, and the amazing, exceptional people that are here, help them bring and share their gifts with the rest of us.
Agreed. And thank you so much for the good work that you're doing in our community and for being with us here today.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And now joining me is Dr. Chan Hellman, who's the keynote speaker for today's event. Chan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Give me a little bit of your background and how you ended up all the way from Oklahoma here with us in Bremerton today.
Okay. So I'm a professor at the University of Oklahoma, and I'm the director of Hope Research Center. And my area of research has been looking at hope as the potential way to mitigate long-term trauma or the long-term effects of trauma. And so that's what brought me here today at the Resilience Conference.
And I was lucky enough to sit in on your keynote speech this morning. Thank you so much for that. You really talked kind of about the science behind hope, the psychology that is hope. Could you talk to me a little bit about that?
So hope is the way in which we look at goals that we set, and more importantly, the pathways or the strategies to attain those goals. The other component that we pay attention to is the willpower or the motivational force that's required to pursue our pathways, and especially in the presence of adversity and barriers.
Sure. And those are such powerful tools really for everybody, but especially those who have gone through some sort of trauma,
Right.
whether
Right.
they're adults or children or anybody. Talk to me about the importance of this summit today for say, our community.
So across the nation, there's been a growing movement introducing the awareness of adverse childhood experiences and the long-term impact that that has across the lifespan. And it's really shaped the way that we ask questions, moving from what's wrong with you to what happened to you. And the work around hope is really the warm handoff, so to speak, of once we understand what happened to you, what are ways that we can begin to begin thinking about the future and looking at well-being and happiness as ultimate outcomes.
Sure. And as a researcher, you're turning those into tangible numbers.
Right.
Where you're really measuring hope. You're looking at how those things have been adversely affecting their subjects, and then how they work through that, and then they gain more hope, more perseverance.
So a lot of the research is demonstrating pretty consistently that if we can move the needle on a child or an adult's hope, positive outcomes tend to follow, whether that's a parent-child relationship quality, social action in a community like voting or volunteerism. We're showing some really positive outcomes in the presence of adversity, as well as those in normal everyday life.
Sure. So really what's going on here today is going to have tenfold effect in our community if we can get everybody speaking this language and practicing this. I think that what stuck out to me most that you said this morning was hope begets hope.
Yeah, so as an individual, especially somebody who comes from a background of trauma, as they begin to experience small-scale success, it begins to open up the possibilities for a broader future or larger, more intensive goal setting in the long term. And so the idea that hope begets hope is that as we begin to experience success, our future possibilities begin to broaden.
Sure, literally the world is opening up.
That's right.
And you spoke about also how hope is really building into resiliency.
Right. We look at hope as the mindset that drives resilient behavior. And so resiliency is the framework by which individuals positively adapt to adversity And we believe that it's the mindset of the future being possible, and that you have the power to make it so is really what drives resilient behavior.
Sure. What a powerful thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we can all just go home on that.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us today, Chan, for making the trip all the way from Oklahoma. And we'll share your website here for everybody so that they can look into your research as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you for allowing me to be here.